Do you remember what you were doing 15 years ago today? What if I reminded you that it was one of the darkest days in Cleveland's history, the day the city fell into default? The players were Dennis Kucinich, the mayor, council president George Forbes, and the Cleveland Trust Bank. The kitty was the Muny light plant, and as the hand played out, the city was brought to its financial knees. But when the game was over, it was the city and its residents who ended up the winners.
News Center 8 City Hall reporter Bob Shermanera was covering the hall back then. And Bob, I remember moderating that default debate between then Mayor Kucinich and Council President Forbes on statewide television. This was a big story.
It really was, one of the biggest in the country. Tim, it was actually hectic. As many of us all know, Cleveland had been in the national and the international spotlight for various things. Mayor Ralph Perk setting his hair on fire, the Cuyahoga River ablaze, and now the nation's youngest elected mayor at the helm of a major American city, steering a course that made Cleveland the first city to go into default since the Great Depression.
I think it's terrible. I think it's a shame. I think the mayor should be impeached.
As far as Dennis goes, Kucinich, he's a pretty good man. I think he's doing a good job.
Headlines throughout the media broadcast the battle between the Kucinich administration and privately owned CEI over who would own the city's municipal power plant. While Muny was the issue, it was Cleveland's banking community that applied heavy pressure on 31-year-old Mayor Dennis Kucinich to sell the power plant, or they wouldn't refinance the city's outstanding bond debt. Much of the fighting was waged on the floor of Cleveland City Council.
Then we'll see if Cleveland Trust is ready to destroy this city in the interest of CEI.
But doggone it, somebody tells me about the disastrous results of default. What are the disastrous results of loss of freedom? And that's what's at stake here.
It wasn't unusual for reporters to cover 2 and sometimes 3 news conferences a day. Tensions were mounting. The mayor was threatening to lay off 1,000 police and 500 firemen. Everything was building to a crucial vote by council, with then Council President George Forbes in favor of the sale.
Danilowitz? Forbes?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, if you can sleep with that, God bless you.
Dead Trust, Cleveland Trust, close your accounts now!
But Kucinich applied some pressure of his own. Known as the People's Mayor, Kucinich rallied hundreds of people to join him in withdrawing his savings from Cleveland Trust.
This bank is trying to destroy a city government through blackmail and intimidation. I'm taking my money out because I don't want clean money in a bank which is dirty.
But even that couldn't save the city. At 12:01 the morning of December 15th, the city fell into its darkest hour. Time for another news conference where Kucinich unveiled his latest plan, Take It to the People.
The Kucinich administration will sponsor a charter amendment on the question of Muny Light to give the people of Cleveland a choice.
I'm surprised, and I'm basically surprised, you know. The concept is sound.
The rest is history. The people voted to keep their power plant, while it cost their mayor his political career. Knowing what you know now and maturing the way you have, do you think you might take the same stand?
Principles don't change with time. It's really a matter of what's inside of you. I did what was right for the people at the time, and if people today say I was right, I'm glad they do feel that way. I would do the same thing all over again. I wouldn't hesitate to stand up for the people.
And 15 years later, how do the people of Cleveland feel about Kucinich's stance?
Yeah, he had his faults, but now he's getting some stuff that he was right.
Smart move.
Why?
Because if the city of Cleveland wouldn't have had no competition, which it is, the prices would have naturally gone much higher than.
He had the guts to do it. It's good.
You think he made the right decision?
Well, yes, I'd say yes.
You think he might be considered a hero?
No, that's carrying it a little too far.
So with CPP rates about 30% lower than CEI's, it's hard to find anyone except maybe a few people at CEI who would say that Kucinich was wrong. Now, whether he knew 15 years ago that his stance would have ended this way is impossible to say, but probably not. CPP is alive and well and expanding in all directions of the city. And one more thing for those of us who can't take advantage of CPP. Try to imagine where their rates might be if Cleveland Public Power wasn't here. Tim and Denise.
And a few years later, former Council President Forbes said Dennis was
He
right.
agreed with him. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Bob.